Hi everyone, welcome to a special episode of Dardashe. Today I'm joined with my friend and colleague Inès who's the advocacy director of PIPD. And we wanted to come together to have a conversation around the recent arrests of activists by the PA for demonstrating against the killing of Nizar Banat and the lack of accountability for those who committed the crime. Hi Inès, welcome to
Hi,
Dardashe.
thanks for having me.
Of course. Just to give people context who don't know about the PA is an administrative body that was created as part of the Oslo agreements and was supposed to have a 5-year mandate to lead Palestinians into statehood. Statehood obviously never came. Israel made sure of that and erected a one-state apartheid reality between the river and the sea. But the PA now has a lot of the crux of Palestinian political power. But at the same time, it only has jurisdiction over about 18% of the West Bank. So a very, very limited amount of territory. And it hasn't had elections since 2006. And at the moment, it's been mainly ruled by presidential decrees, and there isn't a functioning legislature. And it's supposed to offer services to Palestinians in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza, but obviously also because of the split between Fatah and Hamas and the inability to get into East Jerusalem, that's not possible. So in about 2 months ago now, political activist Nizar Banat from Hebron was arrested and died and killed in PA custody. He was a fierce critic of PA officials, corruption, social justice issues. And since then, there have been almost weekly protests demanding for accountability over his murder. No one has been charged to our knowledge as of this recording. But those demands continue. And those protests have been met with a huge crackdown by the PA and security services. People asking for justice, for people to be held accountable, for the resignation of people responsible. So Inès and I just wanted to talk about the recent events because the latest round of arrests of activists happened a few days ago. Some of them close friends of ours, and also who have now gone on hunger strike. So Inès, maybe we get the latest update about what's going on with those who have been arrested and kind of the state of affairs.
Yes, I'll start by the latest, I think, update. And, on Saturday, as you said, for the past weeks, a lot of Palestinians gathered around El Manara Square, which is one of the main squares in Ramallah, to protest, to basically call for accountability in the murder of Nizar Banat, but also for accountability of the government and holding accountable the president, especially, who today is mainly ruling by presidential decree, and I'll come back to that. So right now, as of this morning, we still have 10 Palestinian activists some of them are researchers, intellectuals, and they are all under PA arrests in El Bire. And at least 6 of them we know are on hunger strike to protest the conditions of their detention, but also their arbitrary arrests. Most of them are charged with, things like inciting sectarian strife or insulting the authorities. We also know that our friend Fadi Quran is also charged with, violating the cybercrime law. So for digital activism, which is a law that has been adopted in 2018, and that was very much criticized for basically, very much promoting censorship online from the authorities. So it's very disturbing because these, these politically motivated arrests are multiplying, and it's a very clear pattern. It's clear that the PA leadership is very afraid right now of losing the power. most of society, and I think Palestinian society, wants renewal. They want renewal of the Palestinian leadership. And it's clear that the right now, I think there is the power is concentrated in the hands of a few. So while the PA has developed a lot of its institutions, including the justice system, the education system, health system, there's a lot of institutions that supposedly are, should function, but effectively, more and more the power has been concentrated in the hands of the president. The parliament has not, functioned since 2006, when Hamas was elected and it was boycotted by the international community. So basically, since then, the president is ruling by presidential decree, and the Council of Ministers is just passing laws like that without any legislative due process. So we're in that situation, and frankly, people are clearly fed up of this lack of both accountability, but also clear lack of legitimacy of the overall leadership, and the violence resulting from that is very disturbing.
Yeah, and there's obviously it's multi-layered, right? We're under occupation and apartheid, and we don't have a vehicle or a system of representation that is able to bring people together to be able to challenge these realities that confront us as a people. Things have become extremely draconian and authoritarian, and I think to talk about the PA as a body, it had a very specific service of providing administrative services to Palestinians in Palestine under occupation, which is a very critical thing. Obviously, there are millions of people who are dependent on services to these bodies, but now it's morphed into this political body that holds the keys to the Palestinian national movement. I think there's also a lot of danger with that there. Talking about the different services, the Palestinian security services receive, I think, over 50% of the PA budget, and this was always apparent, but was more felt during a global pandemic when the Palestinian healthcare system could not cope with the different surges we had. So, we need to be able to talk about what the PA is with nuance. It's a body that provides these services to a lot of Palestinians, and a body like that is needed. But what it's turned into at the moment is not something that is conducive for the advancement of our national liberation struggle. And coming to the point you made about legitimacy and representation, we haven't, as a generation, you and I belong to the same generation. We've never elected our national leadership ever. So there isn't also a form of accountability or democracy in trying to, being able to select who represents us, who speaks on behalf of Palestine, Palestinians, who is able to bring Palestinians together to formulate a new national vision and strategy to take on the reality we're in, especially since the Oslo paradigm, has failed. And this is a product of it. And it's very important to be able to address this and ask what are the demands in relation, I think, to Palestinians being arrested by the PA. And one charge that I find wholly ridiculous, which is being brought against our friend Fadi Quran, is this giving out Palestinian flags. I think the generations of Palestinians who've been resisting for decades are probably rolling over their graves, hearing that a Palestinian might be charged with passing out Palestinian flags.
Yes, and actually this last thing is very telling of what you were saying. I think the problem is that the PA that was supposed to be an administrative body has become the political address when it was never supposed to be the political representation of Palestinians, which was the PLO. But the whole state building agenda, which has been supported obviously by the international community and pushed, really on this agenda in Israel that could pay lip service to peace and in a two-state solution, when actually just deepening the apartheid reality. All of this really just strengthened the PA, but also just maintained that reality where eventually you have just one regime Israel controls, and the PA is just a subcontractor to the Israeli occupation. And so basically you have something that clearly is illegal under the military law, the military occupation law in the West Bank and Gaza, to kind of raise a Palestinian flag. And now it's used as an excuse by the PA to arrest, which is what is the most disturbing. And it's very clearly showing that collusion between the two authorities that are part of basically one regime of apartheid. And the demands from the civil society and the protesters, including Palestinian human rights organizations, is very clear. One is obviously release all political detainees unconditionally. It's worth mentioning that a lot of those detained at the moment have also been in Israeli jails, in Israeli prisons, because they're also fighting against Israel's occupation and apartheid. The second thing is, basically ask the PA and the security forces and all the authorities to commit to allow peaceful assembly and respecting the right of free speech and stopping basically all these arrests. And the third one, which has been the demand since the death of Nizar Banat and his killing, is allow for an independent and transparent investigation. The government said they would do their own investigation, but people obviously don't trust the PA authorities to conduct an independent and transparent investigation. So hold the officials accountable. And then others, have demands like obviously the resignation of the president and calling for elections again. For elections to be called immediately because they were canceled indefinitely or they were postponed indefinitely. And the fourth one, which is more to the international community, if we look at the bigger picture rather than the short-term ask, is obviously to review and stop the support to the security coordination with Israel, which is something that the US is still supporting. Canada and the European Union is supporting capacity building for the PA security forces. So all of this, needs to be to end and be reviewed. And I think that's one of the bigger picture asks from the people. And then also protection, because frankly, people are afraid and they're very scared right now of expressing their dissent and their opposition. Because then you can end up in jail in humiliating conditions.
Yeah, and to pick up on one critical point, I think for the future is this idea that we need a new Palestinian political system, a transformed one that is democratic, representative, and accountable, and can give a voice to every Palestinian around the world, all 13 million. Without that sense of democracy and a political system, I don't think we can move forward with our national liberation struggle in a very effective way. And I think this is the crux of the problem. So, it's also about which elections do we promote and support. The PNC of the PLO, which is the Parliament of the Palestinian People, is supposed to be the representative body for every Palestinian, and that's never been directly elected. So elections need to start there, not just with the PLC or the legislature of the PA, which is the administrative body. So we need to. We're not building a state. We're trying to transform a national liberation movement, and it needs to start with a system of representation there. And we as Palestinians and our allies need to be pushing for that as well. So
worth noting as well that while our comrades are arrested in the West Bank, you also have Palestinians inside Israel, the Palestinian citizens of Israel, the Palestinians of 48. That are arrested by, they have Israeli citizenship and they're under arrests and also harassment and clearly intimidation inside the Israeli system. They're also fighting against that colonial system. So different Palestinians, have different authorities that are oppressing them, but they're all basically having the same ask, which is liberation from the occupation and colonization, basically. So I think it's important to say that, eventually not all Palestinians are under the same administrative system, but they are all part of the same oppressive regime, unfortunately. And I think for as you say, I think for Palestinians, and this is the ask, is to also have presidential elections and PLO elections, because the PLC elections, which is the PA parliament, doesn't have sovereignty over most of the things that rule Palestinian lives.
Exactly. Well, on that note, thanks so much for joining Inès on Dardashe for this special episode, and hopefully we'll see freedom for all the political prisoners all over. And maybe this can be a spark for rebuilding and transforming the political system we want and need to help us as a vehicle on our path to national liberation. Thank you, Inès. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Free them all.
Free them all.